Well, hello, everybody. This week, Paul Everitt, Chief Executive of the UK's Aerospace, Defence, Space and Security Industry Group, ADS, should have been preparing to receive the world at the famous Farnborough International Airshow. Sadly, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has put a stop to that, but the show is going ahead online as FIA Connect. And Paul's joining us today to explain how ADS's key work is progressing in such an unsettling time for the global industry. Thanks for joining us, Paul. The immediate impact of COVID-19 on the UK's aerospace sector appears, unfortunately, to be very severe, with significant job cuts already announced at major companies like Airbus, Rolls-Royce and GE, not to mention the airline sector. Just how concerned are you about the degree to which this could diminish the sector's capabilities for the future?
Well, I think there's no doubt this continues to be a very challenging period for aviation and for aerospace. And unfortunately, we are seeing major businesses looking at their headcount, reducing the number of employees they have in their organisations, and generally trying to resize their business, in response to both the very dramatic impact of the pandemic, but also their anticipation that it is going to take a little bit of time to rebuild confidence and for demand to increase. That said, I think we are confident that we are going to see a return to, kind of growth, and, the underlying fundamentals driving aviation and passenger travel are still there, even if it takes a little bit while for them to come back to the levels they were previously. And I'm saying that outside of kind of civil aerospace and aviation, our other sectors have been managing through the crisis reasonably well. So for those businesses, I guess this is almost like a back to the future moment when, good used to have a regular kind of cycle, which was, during good times, aviation was great. And then in not so good times, their defence sides of their businesses helped to compensate. So to a certain extent, hopefully we're just sort of seeing a reinstigation of that sort of more balanced business portfolio.
Yes. No, I see what you're saying. Now, of course, ADS doesn't only represent companies involved in the commercial aerospace, commercial aviation sector. You've got defense companies, space and security companies. To what extent are those sectors perhaps compensating for the heavy damage in the commercial sector? Are they having a very different experience of this, or are they also feeling some pain too?
So I would definitely say that obviously the bigger impact has been in aerospace and aviation. I think the defence, space and security parts of our membership have continued to work through the pandemic, and in some cases have actually seen demand increase with all of us working at home. Some additional cybersecurity requirements. There are no doubt, there is some uptick in some people's businesses. But by and large, the good thing is it has sustained at levels that were anticipated. There have been challenges, however. Clearly, companies have had to modify their operations for a socially distanced world. And that's unquestionably adding some cost and complexity to their businesses. But the good news is that they have kept going, and that clearly has helped those businesses with more diverse business portfolios.
Yeah, good point. It sounds as if your core strategy as ADS for advancing the future of this industry fundamentally hasn't changed. It's not as if COVID has sort of swept all of that aside and made you think, right, forget about everything we planned back then. It's just perhaps served as a sort of an accelerator to these cycles that the industry is well used to dealing with. So by the sound of it, you're sort of sticking to what your strategy is, albeit you're having to deal with the sort of tactical interruptions created by COVID.
I think broadly, yes. I mean, I think there is some sort of added emphasis, let's say, and so that would be particularly the case around research and development. In these circumstances, more companies are cash strapped, and therefore having public support for those R&D programs is really, really important. And certainly we are seeing in the responses from a number of countries, notably, France, Germany, the US, the from a UK perspective, if we aren't able to match their kind of ambition, then companies in the UK risk falling behind, not having the technology available when those key programs come on stream. I think the other area that we are where we've changed is, whilst we've always had a strong focus on productivity and competitiveness, I think there's a recognition that much of the supply chain in the UK is going to need some additional financial support, but that financial support needs to be kind of long-term and patient rather than solely more loans, short-term kind of loan type environment. So those are not wholly new, but I think they have they're given more emphasis. And also I would say the focus around public procurement obviously for defence and security is obviously very important. And we have been going through a period where, certainly from a UK government point of view, they are reviewing what might be a defence and security industrial strategy. Clearly for us, making sure that the UK economic interest is to the fore in that approach to public procurement, is perhaps even more important as we sort of restart and recover from the pandemic.
Yeah, good point. So I suppose when you hear government announcements, for example, on the 30th of June, the Prime Minister himself confirmed that the government's going to extend the support for the Aerospace Technology Institute until 2036. And, by all accounts, they're very infused about the work towards zero emissions air transport. I suppose you find that encouraging, but by the sound of it, you're saying, let those not just be one-off headline-grabbing gestures. Let that be part of a really coherent long-term strategy. Is that essentially what your wish is?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great that the Prime Minister sets out a big ambition, and a zero-emission aircraft able to do long-haul travel is certainly a big ambition. What we hope that signals is that we are going to get some additional support for research and development. Clearly, we have an ambition to double the amount of resources available to the UK's Aerospace Technology Institute, and to also see some of the work that we've been trying to do around sustainable aviation fuels get the priority and resources they need, because these are the things that will allow us to be competitive longer term. And they are the opportunities to ensure that the UK has more of those long-term, high-value jobs that I think, certainly from a UK perspective, we would want to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Now, of course, you mentioned preparations for the end of the Brexit transition period, and back in June, ADS joined with Gamma to express concern about, frankly, the apparent lack of progress in the negotiations between the UK and the European Commission, particularly with things like Britain's departure from EASA in mind. I mean, are you quite discouraged and worried about the possibility of the promised bilateral agreement on aviation regulation being possible at this point? I mean, if heaven forbid, that there is no deal established, where does that really leave the industry in those terms?
So I guess it would be fair to say that we're all looking at those negotiations and feeling quite anxious. Mm-hmm. I think we would all, our priority is to see an agreement, an ambitious agreement between the UK and the EU, which provides us with a level of security and certainty around the future. It's not news to know that we would have preferred, I think this is both the UK industry and our colleagues across the EU would have preferred for the UK to remain part of the European Aviation Safety Agency. It's that has worked well and served us all well, and we would have preferred that outcome. Both sets of negotiators have determined that isn't the way they wish to go, so we are embarked on the bilateral aviation safety agreement. At a technical level, I think I think we don't have that many issues. I think that it is possible to agree an ambitious BASA, and that would be like a next best option for us. Challenges as people who've been looking at the negotiations will, I guess, see is that we're not really dealing with the detail at the moment. There are some bigger picture items that need to be addressed first before some of those more detailed topics are given the attention that they need. I think our concern is that if we don't get an agreement, what happens? And certainly we would prefer to see the bilateral aviation safety agreement lifted out of the wider trade agreement. As BASAs are negotiated on a regular basis with partners around the world, both between the UK and also between the EU and others, and they are not traditionally part of a free trade agreement. And we believe that safety and indeed the competitiveness of the wider European aerospace industry is more important than, if you like, some of the political issues around, whether we do or don't have particular elements within that free trade agreement.
Yes, I take what you mean. And does this air of uncertainty make it harder for the UK industry to attract inward investment and partnership? I mean, does it leave your member companies as they try to, forge alliances with people outside the UK struggling to do that because there's understandable worry as to the basis on which those would proceed?
So again, I think it would be fair to say this is not the easiest time to be, selling investment into the UK. Mm-hmm. Said there are, the UK has tremendous experience and capability, mm-hmm. and are not many places in the world where that is available. So in those circumstances, there are always opportunities. Some of those are a little bit more difficult to secure, and certainly some of those who have traditionally invested in the UK over a long period of time are obviously, I wouldn't say totally waiting to see, but less enthusiastic about making big commitments before they've got a clearer view of what the future will look like. So there's no doubt that it is hampering our ability to attract inward investment. That's why securing a good and early deal is important.
Yeah, good point. Switching subjects quickly, the UK government just recently found no less than $500 million, roughly speaking, to buy a stake in a satellite company called OneWeb. How do you think this will contribute to the wider plan of the UK having its own global navigation satellite service? I mean, some might say, well, this is another example of the UK sort of needlessly reinventing the wheel rather than staying part of an existing partnership like Galileo.
Well, so I think we welcome the fact that they welcome the investment. It's definitely it wasn't one that we all saw coming.
No.
So it's good to be surprised from time to time by what government does. And I guess what we would want to see now is really the shape of that national space programme. So how does the OneWeb investment fit with our ambitions around, global positioning? How does it fit around our, existing commitment to the European Space Agency programs? And how does it fit with what we are expecting to see invested in what we might see as sort of defence and national security space capability? Mm-hmm. There is no doubt that the UK has the resources, capability, experience to be a world leader in space in a variety of ways. The important thing for us is to ensure that the totality of the investment that UK government is making and going to make is effectively coordinated and is used to ensure that we have the underlying strengths and competitiveness to make this something that we can use as a springboard into other global markets. I think it is incredibly well positioned. Again, yes, it would have been for many of us better to have remained part of Galileo, but again, that takes two, and that agreement wasn't possible. So, given the circumstances that we find ourselves in, how can we make the most of it to ensure that we are fostering the capabilities, both from a national security point of view and a future prosperity point of view.
Yeah, certainly. Now, of course, for understandable reasons, we've all been very, very fixated on Europe and the UK aerospace sector's relationship with Europe. But this is a global industry, of course. And so, as things stand, do you still see the UK industry constructively engaging with partners in North America, Asia, the Middle East, everywhere but Europe as well?
Well, I think we think, and I think this is quite an interesting, focus here. I mean, I think we still see ourselves as part of a European industry, and it is, it's an interconnected industry, whether we're looking at space, defence, aerospace, or security. So, the ability to leverage the relationships that we have in Europe and to use those to ensure that we are competitive in many parts of the world is really, really important. Clearly, our sectors are strategically important and often play a leading or key role in some of those sort of big political moments. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, it's a challenging environment. We have obviously trade tensions both between the US and China and Europe and the US. So it's not an easy political environment just at the moment. But again, I think that the UK is fortunate in that we have always played a quite engaged and open role with partners around the world, particularly the US and Middle East, as well as other markets. Those are clearly important to us for the longer term. Certainly my sense is that, we are, companies and government is alive to those, relationships, their importance, and the importance for us not to, if you like, be too inward looking or introspective here. We need to, take our experiences, take our capabilities to the world, but in a way that is not, I think we're keen to see these as long-term relationships. That's what's important, and for it to be seen that the UK is a steady partner and somebody that kind of both at a company and a national level that people can have a secure and long-standing relationship with, and that's particularly important when some other parts of the world are and some other relationships are being challenged.
Yes, fair point. Of course, one of the things that will be happening during the FIA Connect event, and that would always have been happening at the Farnborough Airshow, is an opportunity for ADS and its members to engage with young people, with the next generation of this industry. Despite everything that's going on, is it still possible to look those young people in the eye and say, you know what, this is actually a great business to be in? Don't be put off. If you're thinking about going off to get an aerospace engineering degree, stick with that. This is a worthwhile place to be. Don't be tempted to go and work in the computer gaming industry or something else instead.
No, I mean, I'm absolutely convinced and confident about the future. I think it is an exciting industry. And it's also, what's great is about the diversity of that industry. So, because I was on a call yesterday with colleagues from the Scottish space industry. So, they are, one of the companies I was talking to are building their own launch vehicles. Another is creating a rocket launch facility up in the Shetlands. So, and the enthusiasm that those people have for the space industry and their role within it, was fantastic. And they are very confident about the growth prospects for their particular businesses. If we look at, the net zero decarbonisation challenge, these are going to bring really important, new product program activities, not just in the UK, but around the world. And, those are exciting things for young engineers to be engaged and involved with. So, I think we've, perhaps the last 20 years have been about, the industry moving from sort of a niche capability to, something that is a large and substantive global international industry. I think the next phase of development is really about how we embrace much more agile and faster product and program development, which I think for young people is going to be incredibly exciting. So, the Farnborough Futures activity is incredibly important to us as part of the work that we do to help our companies create a pipeline of talent. And I think you can see in the way in which many of our member companies are continuing to invest in their apprenticeship programs. That's their own commitment to the future and a signal of their own confidence that they are going to need those young people to support their businesses longer term.
Yes, good point. So finally, let's fast forward a bit. Let's say we're in 2030, getting ready for the Farnborough Airshow that year, or 2040 even. Do you think the UK industry is going to be able to look back and say, you know what, we faced down the challenges of Brexit and then COVID, and we managed to successfully sort of reinvent ourselves or keep ourselves in a prominent position? As impactful as these short-term issues seem to be, it sounds like you don't have any doubt about the really strong fundamentals of this industry and where its long-term potential is.
I am very confident. I think so. The flavour of government's approach sometimes changes, but UK governments consistently have seen aerospace, defence, space as strategically important to the UK's future, and have provided support and facilitated activity in order to recognise and maintain that sort of strategic importance. So, whilst we would always prefer more and sooner in the support that government provides, I think there is a very kind of strong link between industry and government around this. And as a consequence, whilst we will always have exciting times where our fortunes will, rise and fall, I think there is such a solid base here in the UK. There is such an enthusiasm for these industries and the challenges that they face. Yeah, I am very confident that when we get to 2030 and 2040, we will be seeing products and programs where the UK has been playing a fundamental role. It'll be, I hope, very exciting. I hope to be just about still around to see them. And I'm sure colleagues will be kind enough to invite me along to Farnborough in 2030 or 2040 to get a front row seat.
Absolutely. And we can tell our war stories about how we survived 2020 and abroad. Excellent. Paul, thank you very much for that. It's great to get your perspective, and we certainly look forward to hearing more from you and your colleagues at the FIA Connect event in a bit over a week from now. So thank you for spending time with us, and very best of luck with all of that.
Thank you. Great to talk to you, Charles.
Thanks for watching this AIN video. Please like, subscribe, and share it if you've enjoyed it. Also, visit AINonline.com for all the latest on the aviation industry.